Hello, I'm Joshua Finn from J&H Aerospace. Today we're going to build the Aleda R boost glider. This is a 1/2 A to A class boost glider for national competition. Very capable machine, and hopefully you will find it very easy to operate and to fly, and hopefully it'll give you a very good intro into the world of rocket powered gliding. This one is specifically designed with a little bit of incidence built into the fuselage, so you'll get very reliable glides. You also get a very straight launch because we've got a nice long body tube for that. So to begin with, we're going to take all of the parts out of our kit. Make sure we don't drop anything. Have our instructions, and it also includes plans. This video is your primary instructions though. So we're going to go over your parts list. First of all, you should have your fuselage. This is made from the hardest balsa we can get. You should have medium grade balsa for your flying surfaces, for your wings. It also includes your dihedral jig and your pylon core, and tail surfaces and pylon sides. This is 1/16 balsa. Have a 6-inch long 13mm body tube. Have a balsa nose cone, launch lug, your clay ballast weight, your streamer material, and your shock cord material. Okay, let's get started with the build. So let's begin by cutting out our fuselage. Everything should come out fairly freely. However, this is very hard balsa, so you do need to bear in mind that it may not be completely freed all the way around. And for now, we're going to just pop our fuselage out, but we are not going to remove this little piece over here. So don't throw this piece of wood away, because you need that little thrust tongue over there, because that is what holds this whole thing together on the way up. Essentially, it is like a trailer hitch. It pulls your glider along like a trailer. It's also important because your glider serves as basically the fins for your rocket. Okay, so we've got our fuselage. We'll give it a light sanding. You should need very, very little here. Because the way this aircraft is designed, it's pretty good right from the start. Next, we're going to cut out our wings, setting this piece of wood aside again. And again, you should just be able to release these little tabs and be able to get fairly good release right from there. By the way, I'm using a carbon steel double-edged razor blade broken in half and snapped to a point. You can use a #1 X-Acto blade. Main thing is start out with a new cutting blade for each build that you're doing. And almost there. Got a little bit of hard strip in that piece of wood. And then we can split our wings apart. So you can cut a variety of airfoils in this wing. What we're going to do is we're just going to round the edges. Now you can, if you watch our video on the Aleda catapult glider, there's a pretty good airfoil described there. You can also go over to discuskid.com and you can look up the stand foil there, which is actually what we're using on the Aleda. And you can cut a really nice airfoil that way. The fact of the matter is that on an A engine, which is the upper limit for this aircraft, you're not really going to be caring a whole lot about that airfoil unless you're flying at the top levels of FAI competition, because this thing will get high enough that thermals are a much bigger factor than your airfoil. This aircraft glides quite well with just a flat plate airfoil, and when you're a couple hundred feet up, it's going to fly very satisfyingly. So basically what I have done is I have just gone around and I have I'm just rounding the edges, not even going for an airfoil. And you'll repeat that on the other wing. Go ahead. So we have gone ahead and we've sanded both our wings to a nice rounded shape. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to bevel sand the wing roots. So we're just trying to get a nice bevel going here. We want to take all of the laser cutting off so you can see a little bit of the laser marks. That means that part still hasn't been sanded. Getting closer. And there we go. And we'll repeat that on this side. Main thing is you want to make sure that you're not rounding things off, which is what I just did. So trying to get that area to straighten back out. Looking a little better. And we see that there's a little bit of a gap forming if this part isn't sanded enough. And now they mate together pretty well. So next thing is, you're going to take your little wedge over here. This is your dihedral gauge. So we're going to cut that out. We want to get any burrs off of these edges. So you want to be clean here and here. You can sand it a little bit if you wish. And now what we're going to do is we're going to weigh down one side. And what we're going to do is, after we apply glue, we're going to slide this in and just lay it down and let it harden. I'm using medium CA here. You can use other longer curing glues. Just requires you to take the time to step away from it. So whatever is to your preference. So we're going to lay this in place, set our dihedral gauge in there, and just to make sure that it all gets done quickly, I'll break off a piece here, dip it in, and just like that, good to go. So last thing we're going to do on our wing is we're going to just sand a little bit of a flat here. And then we're going to add some glue into this wing mount area that's recessed. And we want to line the wing up. We'll do it from the top here. And then we want to have the fuselage as straight on there as we can get, so, you know, straight up and down. Does not have to be perfect, because what really matters is not so much that the fuselage is perpendicular to the plane of your wings, but that your tail surfaces are aligned with your wings. So now, we've got that. Set that aside. Close this back up. And onto tail surfaces. So what you want to do is go ahead and do very basic sanding of your tail surfaces. Should note on your tail surfaces, you can sand these way down. If you're really seeking out ultimate performance, you can sand these way down, but you don't want to sand them down too far or they'll flutter on launch, because you can get going very fast on an A engine. You can actually have the tail surfaces start to disintegrate if they're sanded too thin. So we're putting the stabilizer on top here, not on the bottom. It's very important. And what we're going to do is we're going to glue it down, lay it in place. Alignment is important. but not critical. Now what we're going to do is we're going to lay this thing down, and if we weigh it down like that, we now are guaranteed that the stabilizer is flat. So then our fuselage alignment is no longer critical. And last step in assembling our glider, at least, is just stand off our rudder a little bit. And it does not matter which side you put the rudder on. You just want to make sure that you made it up. Notice I'm putting it on the side of the fuselage, so I'm putting it all the way down so it's flush with the stab, and I'm pressing it up against the side of the fuselage, so now I have 0 rudder offset. So any rudder offsets that I do, I can do any of my trimming with little tabs on here. Now that we have finished construction of our glider, we're not going to put nose weight or balance on it yet, and you'll see why in a minute. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start cutting out this thrust tongue. If I can get everything maneuvered out of here. There we go. So we're going to set that little guy down there. Now, before you finish the nose here, because we have our side plates that we're going to put on the nose, we need to go build the pylon so we can get everything lined up. So let's do that. And we will go ahead and get out one of these pylon sides. We'll get the other one out in a minute. And so what we will do is we'll glue it as it lines up. And so there we have it. Now we have an assembly that looks like this. Now we're going to take our little thrust tongue, and we see it has a point right here. This point angles forward, so I'm holding this in the position it's going to go, and it's going to slide into this notch like so. So what I'm going to do, and remember this, in case you're confused, this came out of your fuselage sheet. It's that little piece over there in the corner. So I can now slide this in. And I will cut out the other pylon panel. And it's just going to glue on the other side and close everything in. And so this whole assembly gives us a very, very solid lockup to retain the glider on the way up. So now you have this assembly, and the little thrust tongue is up inside of there. You want to try to get this lined up as closely as possible so that you get a really positive lockup. The thrust tongue actually helps hold these side plates in, so it compensates for the grain direction being a little different. Now, before you put any sides on here, you want to go ahead and do a test fit here. And you find, as we try to slide everything in, that surprise, surprise is a little bit on the tight side. So if, for example, in this case, I think I got my little thrust tongue misaligned a little bit, so it doesn't go on all the way, and deepen that notch a little bit. And now we've got a little bit better of a hookup. There's a little bit of tightness, and that's because this fuselage material is a little bit out of spec. and that's just the nature of the beast with balsa wood. So we sand that thickness down a little bit. Now we get a very, very easy disconnect. Now, of course, the thing is, we're not terribly secure here, and the grain is running the wrong direction. So that's why we're going to put side plates onto the side of the nose. So these side plates are going to line up with that notch with our sides of our pylon, so we get this really nice match right here, like so. And you want to get any excess glue out of there. And then we'll do, so we've got that. Now we're going to put one on the other side. And so now we have this really nice made up here. It disconnects real nice. Now, the one thing that you want to watch out for is you'll probably find yourself wanting to round things off here because it's kind of blunt shape. Make sure you draw a line or something so that you don't round off any of the material on the mating surfaces. But down here and all around, you do that just fine. So as you can see, I've gone in here off camera and I've sanded things off real nice like. So we can put clay to balance the aircraft out. Put it down here just about anywhere. Just keep it away from your mating surfaces again. And stick that in there. Get ourselves, check our CG. Yeah, that's too far back. So we'll put some more on. Close enough. Yeah, that's where we want our CG. So we'll go ahead and get the test cloud here. So, and here we go. Maybe a little nose heavy, but looks good. Take a little bit of clay off and see. If I can throw properly, that looks good. The next thing I like to do is, for your pylon, you want to have a good mount to the fuselage. So take something round like this pin, wrap a piece of sandpaper around it, and on this top side, rub this pylon along until we sand a curved kind of a slot into it. And that sandpaper is not doing so great. Oh, that was graceful. CA is much harder to sand than wood, so sometimes it takes a little bit to get this started. So now you take your pin here, wrap sandpaper around it, and now we get that nice rounded curve in there, so then this will fit without a huge gap. So next thing we're going to do So we're going to go about 1/4 of an inch in. We're going to put glue down on this part. And we're going to just lay this guy in. And if you've sanded that nice little groove, it should line up pretty well. You can eyeball it pretty well. And go ahead and harden it. And then we'll go up to the top. We're going to bead a glue along. And lay our launch slug in place. You can, again, eyeball that. Now, there's another way you can do this, which is to lay this part against a door frame. And you can run a pencil down the edge of your door frame and you can get nice parallel lines on both sides. Just another way if you want to get everything perfectly aligned. I personally find on these aircraft that that's not that critical. We're getting very, very close here. So we're going to take our shock cord material. And I use quite a bit on here just to provide a little added measure of safety. It's up to you. And the way that I am rigging shock cords on here nowadays, and the reason we're not including an eyelet, is that you can actually go up a little bit forward on the nose cone, ahead of the shoulder. And so what I've done is I've tied it around so you can see the shoulder is back here. So I've got this tied out ahead of it. Now I'm going to take that little tail there, wrap it around, and glue it in place. This is just a simpler way of attaching your laundry, as they call it, for model rockets. Now, we're going to cut this this guy down to 25 inches. What we're going to use this little hole down here for, you may need to clean it out a little bit, is that is going to be our location that we're going to tie off our shock cord. I have shortened this cord already to 25 inches, maybe. Just want to slide this guy through. And I'm going to tie it off. You can shorten this all the way down to 20 inches and it'll probably still be just as reliable. I just like to give the nose cone plenty of time to decelerate down so that less chance of things tearing. And so with a couple knots there, that's good to go. Trim off your tail. So now we're secured here, and what we're going to do is we're going to take our streamer, and we're going to take one end of it and we're going to twist it around so it's nice and tight there. And then I'm going to take my shock cord just before my nose cone. I'm going to tie a little loop here. So I'm going to slide that around. I'm going to use that to tie my streamer in place. And we should be good to go there. Now, to pack this up, what we're going to do is we're just going to accordion fold our streamer. You want to fold it fairly small, it's not too critical. We're going to accordion fold it all the way down, fold it in half or something, and wind some of the shock cord around it. And then we'll leave a little bit of excess here. Actually, what I like to do is I like to spiral wrap it around the fuselage a little bit, and then I can slide. Now, by the way, I should mention, you're going to take your flame-proof recovery wadding. You're going to pack the equivalent of about 1.5 squares in here, and then you will load this streamer in, load the nose cone in, and there you go. So, congratulations, you're done building. Now, we're going to do a tutorial on operating this aircraft. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to break off a little bit of your flame-proof wadding. This should come with your engines. If it doesn't, buy some extra from Estes, because you will need it. Otherwise, you will melt your streamer, or worse, blow the shock cord off, and then you may not even get separation from the glider. Use something to pack this material down in there. Do not try using a substitute. You want to use the real thing, because contrary to popular belief, because I've tried it, paper towels will catch on fire. And get as much of that shock cord packed in there as possible. Since we're using a fairly thin one, it's not super critical. The main thing is, we're going to come back here. Our engine, as you can see, slides in and out real easily. We don't want that, because we want the engine to stay put and the nose cone to come off. So we're going to break off a small piece of tape here. I'm going to break even that in half. And we're starting to get tight. So we'll put the other piece on. This should be real nice and tight on it. May not be able to. There we go. You're going to shove the engine in about that far, so leave about a 1/2 inch sticking out. Make sure you're able to get it back out. But anyway, so that's good. Safety Nazis. This is not a real engine. This one's been fired. The reason I give the Safety Nazi briefing is because we're actually going to show you how to load this thing up. So fit your Estes igniter in place. And now, those are not igniter plugs. Well, since I don't have an igniter plug handy, you can use more of your flame-proof wadding. Wad a little bit of it up, and that's why it's called wadding. I'm going to do this the way that's shown in the old catalogs. Pack that down in there, and then bend your igniter wires, make sure they're not touching. Now the next thing is, on our launch pad, we're going to measure up to this height. So right here we're going to put a piece of tape, because we don't want any weight on the glider, or the glider can come off. And we're going to put this piece of tape in. Now this is a very important step here. When we load this guy up, it's very important that the igniter wires come back this way towards the tape. Fit our glider on. And now, and this controller is not even hooked up, so we're just doing basic demo here. You're going to take your wires from your launch controller, and you're going to hook them up like so. Obviously with your safety key stowed and whatnot. Alright, so the thing is, you're going to string these wires out in this direction so that they're away from the tail of the glider. Optimally, you can actually stick another stake in the ground. You can pull the wires back so that they're almost tensioned, You tape them in place there, and then that way they can fall free, and there's no way they can get close to the tail of the glider. So after that, everything is up to you. Press the button and enjoy. Questions, comments? Post them in the comments section below. Let us know what you'd like. This glider is available at jnhaerospace.com. Y'all have a nice day. Bye.